3:17 a.m. Uber driver, Jake Morrison picks up a passenger from St. Francis Hospital, middle-aged man, business casual clothes, trembling hands, eyes locked on his phone, then the phone slips from his grip and lands face up on the seat. Jake glances in the rearview mirror and his blood runs cold. The screen shows a timer counting down, time until detonation, 47 minutes and 33 seconds. 47 minutes and 32 seconds, 47 minutes and 31 seconds. Every instinct screams at Jake to pull over, get this man out, call the police. But something in the passenger's face stops him. It's not the expression of a terrorist. It's the expression of a man drowning in desperation. Jake makes a split-second decision that will either save hundreds of lives or cost him his own. He keeps driving. Let's rewind 12 minutes. Jake Morrison, 42 years old, has been driving for Uber in Seattle for 4 years. It's a second job. He's a high school physics teacher by day, rideshare driver by night to pay off student loans and support his daughter's college tuition. He knows this city's rhythm. The 3 a.m. crowd is predictable: drunk college kids, airport runs, hospital pickups. The ping comes through at 3:14 a.m. St. Francis Hospital, downtown Seattle. Destination, an industrial area near the waterfront. The fare estimate is decent, and Jake needs 3 more rides to hit his nightly goal. He accepts. When he pulls up to the hospital's main entrance, the passenger is already waiting outside, pacing. That's the first odd thing Jake notices. Most people wait inside where it's warm. March in Seattle is cold and wet. But this man is outside, arms wrapped around himself, breath visible in the night air, staring at his phone like it contains the secrets of the universe. The man gets in quickly, almost stumbling. "Thank you for picking up so late," he says, his voice tight. Jake catches his reflection in the rearview mirror, late 40s, maybe early 50s. Stubble on his face. Dark circles under his eyes. The kind of exhaustion that comes from fear, not just lack of sleep. "No problem," Jake says, pulling away from the curb. "Rough night at the hospital." "You could say that." The man's eyes never leave his phone. Jake tries again, "Heading to work?" "Kind of early for that." "Something like that." The conversation dies. Jake focuses on driving, but something feels wrong. He's had thousands of passengers. You develop a sixth sense for danger: the drunk who might get sick in your car, the angry person looking for a fight, the creep who makes inappropriate comments. This isn't any of those. This is something else. The man's phone rings. He answers immediately, whispering urgently. Jake can't make out the words, but he catches fragments. "Told you I'm handling it. 37 minutes. If I don't make it in time." Then the phone slips, the man fumbles, panic flashing across his face, and the phone tumbles onto the seat beside him, screen bright in the darkness of the car. Jake sees it clearly in the mirror, a timer app, orange interface, white numbers counting down relentlessly. And those words, "time until detonation." Jake's mind races. Detonation. Bomb. This man has a bomb, or knows where one is, or is connected to one somehow. Every action movie, every news report about terrorism floods his thoughts. The logical move is obvious: pull over, get out, call 911, let the authorities handle it. But here's what stops him. Jake spent his entire adult life studying physics, teaching students how to think critically, how to question assumptions. And something doesn't add up. If this man were a terrorist, why would he take an Uber? Why would he answer his phone on speaker? Why would he look so terrified rather than determined? Jake makes eye contact with the passenger in the mirror. "Your phone fell," he says carefully. "I saw the screen." The man's face goes white. For a moment, neither speaks, then the passenger's shoulders slump, and he does something Jake doesn't expect: he starts crying. "Please," the man says, voice breaking. "Please just keep driving. I have 45 minutes to get to the docks. If I don't make it," he can't finish the sentence. "Who are you?" Jake asks, keeping his voice steady even as adrenaline floods his system. My name is David Reeves. I'm a structural engineer. And I need your help. Jake takes a calculated risk. Instead of heading toward the industrial waterfront as the GPS suggests, he pulls into an empty 24-hour gas station parking lot and turns to face his passenger directly, "You have 30 seconds to explain what that timer means before I call the police." David's words come out in a rush. 3 weeks ago, I was hired to inspect a new luxury apartment building downtown, Riverfront Towers, 42 stories. The developer wanted final approval before the grand opening ceremony scheduled for 10 a.m. this morning. I found critical structural flaws in the foundation. The building isn't safe, but when I reported it, the developer threatened me, said if I didn't sign off on the inspection, he'd destroy my career, my reputation, everything. What does that have to do with a bomb? It's not a bomb, David says, almost laughing through tears. It's a structural failure timer. I created a simulation model based on the building's weight distribution and the foundation cracks I documented. According to my calculations, the building will experience catastrophic structural failure in approximately 44 minutes. The grand opening ceremony starts at 10 a.m. There will be over 300 people inside. Jake stares at him. You're saying the building is going to collapse? I'm saying it might. The probability is high enough that I can't take the risk. I've been trying to reach the developer, the city building inspector, anyone who will listen. But it's 3 a.m. on a Saturday. Nobody's answering. I was at the hospital because I had a panic attack. They sedated me. By the time I woke up, I had less than an hour. David leans forward, desperation in his eyes. The building has a master control system in a maintenance facility near the waterfront. If I can access it, I can trigger the emergency evacuation protocol remotely. But I need to get there, and I don't have a car because I took an ambulance to the hospital. Jake looks at the timer on the phone. 42 minutes and 18 seconds. His physics teacher brain kicks in. Show me your calculations. David pulls out a tablet from his bag with shaking hands. What Jake sees over the next 5 minutes changes everything. Detailed structural diagrams. Engineering reports marked confidential, photographs of foundation cracks that even Jake, not an engineer, can tell are serious, mathematical models showing stress distribution, and the timeline. As the building reaches maximum occupancy during the morning event, the additional weight combined with the compromised foundation will trigger a cascade failure. This is why the timer is so specific, David explains. It's not a bomb timer. It's a mathematical prediction based on material stress thresholds, weight load, and the documented crack propagation I measured. The building has been slowly failing since it was completed. Today is when it reaches critical mass. Jake knows enough physics to understand what he's looking at. The calculations are sophisticated, but the principle is simple. Structural integrity has a breaking point, and according to David's model, that breaking point arrives at approximately 4:04 a.m., right when the building's environmental systems shift to accommodate the morning event setup, changing pressure distributions throughout the structure. Why didn't you go to the police? Jake asks. I did, 2 weeks ago. Filed a formal complaint with the city. The developer has connections, he's friends with half the city council. My complaint was under review. Then last night, I got a call from an unknown number. Someone told me that if I didn't back off, they'd make sure I never worked again. They knew where my daughter goes to school. Jake, they threatened my family. There it is. The human element that turns this from a technical problem into a moral crisis. Jake looks at the clock, 3:34 a.m. 40 minutes left. He has a choice. Drive David to this maintenance facility and potentially be part of saving hundreds of lives, or assume this is some elaborate scheme and protect himself. Then Jake thinks about his own daughter, studying engineering at University of Washington. He thinks about the building codes he teaches his physics students about, the real-world applications of the forces and stresses they calculate in homework problems. He thinks about 300 people gathering in a building that might collapse. How far is the maintenance facility? Jake asks. 15 minutes if traffic is clear. Jake puts the car in drive. Then let's stop wasting time. They speed through empty Seattle streets, street lights blurring past. David explains as they drive. The Riverfront Towers developer, Richard Mallory, has a history of cutting corners. David discovered that the foundation was built with substandard concrete. Someone had been skimming materials costs, substituting cheaper compounds. The building passed initial inspections because Mallory knew who to pay off. How certain are you about the timing? Jake asks, weaving through an intersection. 87% confidence interval based on my models, but Jake, even if I'm wrong, even if it doesn't collapse at exactly 4:04 a.m., those cracks are real, that building is unsafe, the evacuation needs to happen. The phone rings again. David answers, putting it on speaker. A harsh voice fills the car. Reeves, where the hell are you? Who is this? David demands. Someone who's very disappointed in your choices. You were supposed to sign off on that inspection and disappear. Instead, you're making a lot of noise. Jake's hands tighten on the wheel. This isn't paranoia. The threat is real. The building is going to collapse, David says. You can threaten me all you want, but physics doesn't care about your profit margins. That building is structurally sound. You're just a washed-up engineer trying to make himself feel important. Then why are you calling me at 3:40 in the morning? David shoots back. Silence. Then, if you go near that control facility, we'll know. And there will be consequences. The call ends. Jake glances at David. We're being watched. Probably. Mallory has security everywhere. Then we need a different approach. Jake's mind, trained to solve problems, clicks into gear. What exactly do you need to access at the facility? The building's central control system. I need to trigger Protocol Red, that's the emergency evacuation sequence. It'll sound alarms, automatically unlock all exits, and send emergency alerts to everyone's phones in the building. But it requires an engineer override code that only I have. Jake makes a decision. Can you access it remotely if you're connected to the building's network? David blinks. Theoretically, yes. But I'd need to be within range of the facility's Wi-Fi, and the signal doesn't extend far. Jake smiles grimly. Then we're not going inside. We're getting close enough for you to hack in from the car. At 3:52 a.m., Jake parks 2 blocks from the maintenance facility, close enough for David to detect the network on his tablet, far enough to avoid security cameras. David's fingers fly across the screen, accessing backdoor protocols he built into the system during the original inspection. Come on, he mutters. The timer reads 11 minutes and 47 seconds. Jake keeps watch, but the streets are empty. Saturday morning, industrial waterfront, nobody around. His phone buzzes, a text from his daughter asking if he's okay. He doesn't answer. How do you explain you're potentially stopping a building collapse? I'm in, David says suddenly. I have access to the control panel. Then trigger the evacuation. If I do this, there's no going back. If I'm wrong, I'll be liable for millions in damages. False alarm protocols, emergency response costs, reputational damage to Mallory's company. He'll sue me into oblivion. Jake turns to look at him. And if you're right. David stares at the screen. The timer hits 10 minutes. His finger hovers over the Protocol Red activation. Then he presses it. Immediately, David's phone erupts with notifications. Emergency alerts being sent to every registered occupant and staff member of Riverfront Towers. The building's alarm system activating. Security protocols engaging. And somewhere downtown, 300 people who were gathering for a celebratory grand opening ceremony are being told to evacuate immediately. David's hands are shaking. I just destroyed my career. Or you just saved hundreds of lives, Jake says quietly. They sit in silence, watching the timer count down. 8 minutes and 23 seconds, 8 minutes and 22 seconds. 8 minutes and 21 seconds. At 4:04 a.m., exactly when David's model predicted, Jake's phone buzzes with a breaking news alert. He opens it, and his breath catches. breaking, partial structural failure at riverfront towers. No injuries reported due to evacuation. Building evacuated at 3:53 a.m. following emergency protocol activation. City engineers on scene. Cause under investigation. David stares at the screen, tears streaming down his face. It happened. It actually happened. The news updates rapidly. The collapse wasn't total. David's model had predicted a cascade failure, but the evacuation and the shutdown of environmental systems had reduced the load just enough to limit the damage to the building's south wing. But the structural engineers arriving on scene are already confirming what David knew: the foundation was catastrophically compromised. If people had been inside during the grand opening, casualties would have been severe. Jake's phone rings. It's a number he doesn't recognize. He answers cautiously. "Mr. Morrison? This is Captain Sarah Rodriguez with Seattle PD. We need to speak with David Reeves. We've been trying to reach him. His evacuation alert may have prevented a major disaster." Jake hands the phone to David, who explains everything: the inspection, the threats, the calculations, the desperate race to trigger the protocol. By the time he finishes, there are sirens approaching. Police cars, not for arrest, but for protection. Someone leaked David's role in the evacuation to the media, and suddenly he's not a paranoid engineer, he's the whistleblower who saved lives. Richard Mallory is arrested by 6 a.m. The investigation reveals everything David suspected and more: falsified inspection reports, bribery, material fraud spanning multiple projects. The building code violations are so extensive that 3 other Mallory properties are immediately evacuated pending structural review. As dawn breaks over Seattle, Jake drives David home. No fare, no timer, just 2 exhausted men who made the right choice when it mattered most. "I'll never be able to thank you enough," David says as he gets out of the car. Jake shakes his head. "You did the hard part. You saw the problem, you did the calculations, you refused to be silenced. I just drove the car. You believed me. When nobody else would, you looked at the evidence and you believed me. That's everything." Jake Morrison's story went viral by noon, the Uber driver who helped prevent a disaster. But he always pointed to David Reeves as the real hero, the engineer who risked everything to protect strangers. This story is about split-second decisions when faced with impossible choices. Jake had every reason to protect himself: kick out a passenger with a suspicious timer, call the police, stay out of it. Instead, he asked questions, looked at evidence, and chose to trust a stranger whose story seemed impossible but whose desperation was real. David Reeves saw the cracks and refused to look away. Jake Morrison saw a man in crisis and chose to help rather than hide. Together, they prevented a tragedy that would have devastated a city. The timer reached 0 at 4:04 a.m. The building partially collapsed at 4:04 a.m. And 300 people lived because 2 strangers chose courage over comfort. Sometimes heroism isn't about superpowers. Sometimes it's about a physics teacher in an Uber, a desperate engineer with a timer, and the decision to believe that doing the right thing matters more than protecting yourself from risk. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more incredible true stories, and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.